In my video, Nickelodeon Studios Florida, the beginning and end of an era, we explored the history and demise of this once prosperous Orlando destination. But much like a movie script contains scenes that don't quite make it into the final product, these subjects often contain facts or side stories that, while not part of the main focus of the video, are equally as fascinating. So here are my top 5 after the facts. There are several factors that contributed to Nickelodeon's mid-90s success and ratings boost, one of which includes the 1995 televised trial of O.J. Simpson, which was known as the trial of the century, and was covered on virtually every major news channel, as well as dozens of local channels all around the US. The courtroom coverage also interrupted regular television programming, leading those disinterested in the murder case and families with young children to the few channels not covering the trial, one of which happened to be Nickelodeon. And with program offerings for all ages, Nickelodeon became the go-to network for anyone trying to get away from the near-constant media coverage of O.J. Simpson. And it was this that not only boosted Nickelodeon's ratings, but introduced itself to those previously unfamiliar with the growing network. While Nickelodeon magazine would become an icon of the network, its first incarnation in 1990 was only available at Pizza Hut locations, with only 2 issues being produced. However, 3 years later, the magazine returned, and while only being published by Nickelodeon on a quarterly basis, by 1994, the magazine would release 10 issues a year, with the popularity of Nickelodeon magazine continuing to soar throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. However, in December of 2010, the magazine would see its last issue, reportedly due to economic reasons and Nickelodeon's migration of the network's content to their website. But in 2015, Nickelodeon magazine was revitalized by comic and graphic novel publisher Papercutz, which was cancelled yet again after only 11 issues. For the burying of Nickelodeon's iconic time capsule in 1992, the items buried were as follows: a copy of Home Alone and Back to the Future on VHS, an MC Hammer and Michael Jackson album, a Nintendo Game Boy, rollerblades, Reebok pump sneakers, a jar of Gak, a hat from Joey Lawrence, newspaper coverage of the AIDS crisis, Desert Storm, and the end of the Soviet Union, the very first issue of Nickelodeon magazine, that week's TV guide, a history book, comic book, and phone book, along with a copy of the Book of Endangered Species and a World Atlas, a Nicktoons t-shirt featuring Ren and Stimpy, a piece of the Berlin Wall, which is rumored to have been taken from the large slab of the actual Berlin Wall outside the nearby Hard Rock Cafe, a Barbie doll, pencils, a skateboard, a baseball, Twinkies, a stick of gum, photos of things too big to fit inside, and finally, a videotape of the burial event itself, along with the camera used for recording, which is believed to have been unplanned.
Wait a minute.
Put the whole thing in there, Joey, will you?
All right, I'm gonna put the whole thing in.
Put the whole thing in there.
All right.
We'll open that up in 50 years.
While Nickelodeon's Double Dare and its various incarnations were famously filmed at Nickelodeon Studios Florida, prior to its construction, episodes were filmed at the studios of PBS affiliate WHYY-TV in Philadelphia, as opposed to Los Angeles or New York to lower production costs. And in 1987, a year after first airing, a weekend edition of the show began filming, along with the pilots for Celebrity Double Dare and a version featuring married couples, both of which were hosted by at the time Bruce Jenner, although neither were picked up for full seasons. And in 1989, while Nickelodeon sound stages were finishing construction, one episode of a revamped version of Super Sloppy Double Dare was filmed at Universal's recently completed Soundstage 21, which was the largest non-attraction soundstage at Universal, and would continue to be leased to the network for tapings of Nickelodeon Guts up until 1995. While the Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida never had any other incarnations, over at Universal Studios Hollywood, with the closure of Fiefel's Playland in 1997 to make way for Terminator 2 3D, the park was in need of another children's play area, so Universal turned its eyes towards its upper lot, which up until then had featured a landmark called the Warlord Tower, also known as the Crusades Tower, which had originally been built for the 1965 film The Warlord. But in 2001, 2001, the location was transformed into the Nickelodeon Blast Zone, a play area/water park for kids, which featured 500-gallon water buckets and the iconic Nickelodeon rocket. The location also included an indoor play area called the Wild Thornberrys Adventure Temple. But in 2008, not long after the transformation of Nickelodeon Studios Florida, the Nickelodeon play area was rethemed as The Adventures of Curious George, which would only last 5 years before being torn down for Universal Studios Hollywood's incarnation of the wizarding world of Harry Potter. I hope you enjoyed this edition of After the Facts, and if you haven't already, check out the video from which this episode was based. And if you would like to help support me in the making of future videos, please check out my Patreon and shop in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.